Hey guys, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the Unspeakable podcast. My name is Deanne and I'm so glad to have you guys here with me today. So let's get into the episode. Before I get into this episode, I wanted to give a little bit of a disclaimer. In this episode, I will be discussing body image, eating disorders, a relationship with food, stuff like that. And just a heads up, I'm not a professional. I'm just here sharing my story. And I know that topics like this could be triggering for a few people, so please feel free to skip the episode if you don't feel comfortable. Okay, to start off this episode, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a life update. I really haven't been doing much lately. I have just been working, trying to figure things out. I am finally getting back into the gym and, weightlifting and all of that. I just really my goal is to really just be more consistent with that. Because I will fall off for like a week and then I'll start working out again and then I'll get extremely sore. But yeah, besides that though, I spent last week just sending out like DMs and stuff like that to small companies to see if I can work with them as a photographer, which I was honestly so nervous about because I can come up with 1,000,001 reasons on why I shouldn't do that right now and I should just, keep practicing, whatever. But, sometimes you just have to rip the bandage and go head on, you know what I mean? And if I didn't send out those DMs, I probably would wait like a year to do so. So, yay for me. And yeah, there really hasn't been much going on in my life besides that. Anywho, getting into today's episode is insecurities. And even though a lot of us want to act like we don't have any, the reality is everybody has insecurities, whether they're external or internal. And it's just a very uncomfortable topic, and that's why I feel like a lot of us avoid it. So first things first, insecurities stem from two main places. The first one being lack of something, right? Maybe it's confidence, status, whatever it is. Those are the things you're insecure about. And the other one is fear. Fear that even if you have that thing that you really want, you still wouldn't feel enough, or you feel like you wouldn't be enough. So one is external and one is internal. For me, a lot of my insecurities came from more of an internal source. So they kind of came from a place of knowing that I can do better and I can be better. And there is a term for that in psychology. It's the self-discrepancy theory. So that's just the idea that our insecurities often show up when there is a gap between who we are right now and who we want to be. And that's really all it is. It's a gap between where you are and where you could be. And there's usually two main paths that people go down. The first one is the destructive path where everybody's like, why me? You know what I mean? Like, how come I didn't get that? How come I'm not there? How come I'm not a millionaire living the Kardashian lifestyle? It's a lot of complaining and a lot of taking you down that path of self-destruction. But it can also take you down a path of inspiration, right? It can allow you to move forward, and that's what we want. To tell our brains that, hey, like, we actually have potential here. So I feel like that's where a lot of my insecurities come from. It comes from self-awareness, and showing me that there's areas for growth. And honestly, that's why I think a lot of insecurities are not a bad thing. So you can let your insecurities feel like they're flaws, something that is broken and needs to be erased, but it all really just comes down to how you choose to see it. You can let your insecurities eat away at you bit by bit, or it can honestly just be a little quirk, you know what I mean? Like, we all have quirks in our lives, and you can see your insecurities as a signal, because that's what it is. It really just points out something about yourself where you just need put more attention and more love in, you know what I mean? Or it can be just a little bit of a push for you and be like, hey, like you need to do XYZ, you need to take this time to focus on your health, or you need this time to focus on your finances, your education, whatever it is. So yeah, you can kind of treat insecurity as your friend, or you can demonize it. And a lot of the time when we talk about insecurities, it is demonized. It puts people in like the state of defensiveness, you know what I mean? Like it makes people shut down or makes them feel bad about themselves. But most of the time it just comes from this, like a lot of those stuff just come from the same place, and it's a deep desire to be a better version of yourself. And that can either destroy you or it can build you up, if you see what I'm saying. So for me, one of the biggest insecurities I've overcome was communication. Like, I know it sounds silly, but I had a hard time communicating with people, and getting my ideas across, because I would always overthink things. And it was such an obstacle for me to kind of get over, because when I was younger, I mentioned this in my previous episode, but I always had somebody around, right? Like I've always had my sister around to do all the talking for me. I've had my brothers around to do all the talking. I never really had to like put myself out there and be like, okay, like Rihanna, you're gonna have to put your big girl pants on and do this on your own. And like I feel like it was a very rude awakening at some point in my life. Like I feel like it was like right when I got to college, when I was like 18ish. And that's when it really started to hit me. I was like, okay, like you're here alone. Like you need to get your ideas out there by yourself, because you don't have somebody else to rely on. So it took me a long time to open up. It took me, I think, like 2 years to kind of get over my fear of speaking up. Like there was a time where I couldn't even giggle in peace, right? Like I couldn't giggle because I was so in my own head about like, what if somebody takes it the wrong way? Like what if I sound stupid? What if I do this? What if I do that? You see, like it's that internal fear of not being enough once again. So that insecurity itself was really highlighting a place that I needed to focus a little bit more on, right? To help me become a better version of myself. Because who would have thought that the really quiet, shy girl would be on here having a podcast, talking with a bunch of strangers, sharing her ideas? Like I would have never thought in a million years. And now I'm doing it, you know what I mean? So it takes baby steps. It really just takes some attention to use those insecurities to help you evolve as a person. And I really think that's what highlights the difference of having insecurities and being an insecure person, because everybody has insecurities, right? Like we all have some aspect of ourselves that need improvement to help us evolve as people and as a society. And it really just depends on how you see it, because when you have insecurities, you can go down the path of self-destruction, or you can go down the path of self-awareness and personal growth. So what I think makes somebody a very insecure person, or makes somebody insecure, is when they allow their insecurities to kind of eat away at them. Because I'm not gonna lie, it kind of comes off as waves. Like it really does. Like you can pick up on other people's insecurities and things that they don't like to talk about, because it's slowly eating away at them. Like it changes who they are as a person. And the only way to avoid being an insecure person is identifying your insecurities, sitting with your insecurities, understanding them, and also like finding a way to move on from it, or it will really just eat you alive. You see what I'm saying? And okay, so a lot of this that I've just talked about is more of internal insecurities, right? Like stuff that we all struggle with. A lot of our personal growth comes from that. But now let's switch over to talking about external insecurities, right? I honestly believe that external insecurities come from comparing ourselves to others. And the reality really is that your success, your goals, everything that has to do with you and your personal life has nothing to do with their life. And their life has absolutely no impact on your life. So why go around comparing yourself to the next person? And I know a lot of people say this like all the time. They're like, well, their success or whatever has no effect on me, but then do you actually believe that? Like, do you genuinely believe that deep down? And that's the only way you'll really get out of that whole mindset, is when you actually believe it deep down. One thing I always remind myself that kind of keeps me away from comparing myself and comparing my success and stuff like that is remembering that what's meant for me will find me eventually, and I just have to focus on that, and what's meant for other people will find them as well. You know what I mean? And a lot of, like, there's this analogy that I like to use. I'm like, if there is a door right in front of me, and there's $1,000,000 in gold behind that door, if it's not meant for me, like, the thought of even opening that door and going inside wouldn't even cross my mind. Like, matter of fact, I probably wouldn't even see the door. So yeah, so you just really need to focus on your journey and what's meant for you, because you can't even, like, stay in your own lane if you're constantly looking at other people's lanes. Like, you're gonna fall off the side of the road. So instead of comparing yourself to other people, what you can do is you can compare yourself to yourself. You can compare yourself today to yourself 5 years ago, or to yourself last year. And once you do that, you appreciate the journey that you're on, because you're like, look how far I've come. You become more grateful for where you are now, because you literally reflect on where you were a year or 2 years ago, and to see how far you come is crazy. Because even me right now, like, I reflect on myself a year ago or 2 years ago and see how far I come, and I'm like, wow, like, I went through so much growth, I went through so much evolution to get to where I am today, and I'm immensely grateful for that. And eventually you just stop caring about becoming somebody else when you can become the person that you're meant to be. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, like, that really excites me, because I want to be somebody who understands myself deeply. I want to be somebody that has a strong foundation for their mental, physical, spiritual. I just want to grow into my passions, right? Like, I just want to be able to reach more people with not just my podcast, but with other things. I want to learn more about the things that I like. Like, I want to grow into that person that I know that I can be, because I know how much potential I have, and you guys know how much potential you have. So focusing on that person that you want to become becomes exciting for you at some point. You know what I mean? So you gotta let your insecurities work for you, not work against you. Because once you, like, identify or pinpoint an insecurity that you have, then you can be like, okay, like, well, how can I grow in this area? Like, how can I change in this area? How can I evolve? Right? Because it's supposed to help you become the person that you're meant to be. It's not supposed to tear you down. And it really just ends up depending on how you view it. Because if you really want it to, then it could really tear you down, and it could make you feel less than in any way, shape, or form. And honestly, since we're not here for very long, I don't want to live a life where I feel miserable and I feel less than, because I know I can be a lot happier. I can be growing as a person and really leaning into my potential while I'm still here. Because honestly, chasing growth does not mean that you're not enough as you are right now. It just means that you see your own potential and you believe in your ability to become more and live more. And honestly, I feel like that's the healthiest reason for someone to feel uncomfortable with where they are right now. And it's not because you're dissatisfied, but because you're inspired to do more and be more. You know what I mean? Something that I struggled with growing up, and I think a lot of people have struggled with growing up, is weight. Because I grew up as an overweight child. I grew up on a lot of junk food. I didn't really understand health and stuff like that very well. And there was like a time when I was like 13 or 14 where I decided that I wanted to make a change. I wanted to be healthier. So that year, I think it was like 4 or 5 months, I did a lot of, like, research. And I don't even think it's considered research, because it was just a bunch of YouTube videos and, like, advice that I got from people online, because I didn't really know much about healthier lifestyles. and the general consensus was eat less. So that's exactly what I did. And that year I lost a lot of weight, and I lost it in the most unhealthiest way possible, and I do not recommend. And at some point I didn't even realize that I was developing an eating disorder, because I was eating so little, but my intention was never to actually hurt myself. I just thought that's what a healthier lifestyle was. So there was like a large gap in my understanding of health and wellness at the time. And I honestly really never learned what it meant to nourish my body properly until I was an adult, and it's something that I'm still continuing to learn about. But when I was that age, when I was 13, 14, and I lost a lot of weight, one thing I have noticed was people talking. Because when I was overweight, everybody was like, oh, you should eat less, you can do this, you can do that. And I'm talking about not just people my age, but adults as well. Like, adults would always make comments like that. And then when I did lose all the weight, the comments were still there, but then it was just flipped, right? Like, you're starving yourself, you should eat something, to the point where I had like teachers and people pull me aside and give me like rye bread with cheese, or like cold cheese. It was terrible, and they like forced me to eat it. And I think it was like roughly when I was like 16 when I gained a lot of that weight back, because like when you lose a lot of weight in such an unhealthy way like that, you tend to gain that weight back pretty fast. So when I gained the weight back, the comments were back like, oh, like, you should lose some weight, you should do this and that. And I was just like so curious, because I was like, no matter what I do, somebody will always have something negative to say. And honestly, that's just the sad reality of things, you know what I mean? And I just had to learn. I'm like, okay, like, no matter what I do, like, people are never going to be happy with me. Therefore, the best thing for me would be to just tune it out, right? And their opinions lost value, because I was like, you guys are just contradicting yourselves. It's like, no matter what I do, it's never enough. So why should I care? You know what I mean? So society, beauty standards will continue to change. And at some point, I just don't care anymore. Like, genuinely, I just stopped caring. And personally, I'm really big on learning about historical trends in fashion and beauty standards and stuff like that. And depending on where you are, beauty standards are completely different. Everybody has their own idea of beauty standards. Every society has their own idea of what people should look like. And I came across this, I think it was like a carousel either on TikTok or Instagram, where they were talking about this trend in the Victorian era where people wanted to look like eggs. And then I was like, that's so crazy to me. Like, people would shave their eyebrows and then actually have a receding hairline, or make it look like they're having a receding hairline. And I'm like, you see, like, people thought that was pretty back then, but then it changed again. You know what I mean? So it's like, at this point, I'm just going to create my own beauty standard, right? I'm going to show appreciation for my own body, because it does so much for me. And it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say, as long as you feel good and you're feeling healthy and you love yourself. All those outside noises will start to quiet down, you know what I mean? And once they start to quiet down, right, like, once you start listening to that inner voice of yours, that positivity coming from inside, then the outside noise gets so quiet to the point where you can barely hear it. So once you start showing that love and gratitude for your body, or at least when I started showing more gratitude, like, I'm grateful to breathe, I'm grateful to move, I'm grateful to heal. And even when I'm sick, I'm grateful, because I know that my body is working so hard to protect me. And all that gratitude really just canceled out the insecurity, because I know who I am regardless of what other people want to think or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And when it comes to gratitude, it's not just a mindset, right? Gratitude is a biological shift. So whenever we're like expressing gratitude towards ourselves, it reduces our stress hormones, it increases dopamine and serotonin and all those feel-good chemicals that make us feel secure. So the idea here is that you can let your insecurities eat your life, or you can choose to let them guide you towards who you are becoming, right? Because the brain is always changing. And that's where neuroplasticity comes into the conversation. Actually, that's what neuroplasticity means, is that the more you focus on fear and insecurity, the stronger those pathways get. But if you focus on self-compassion, action, and growth, that's when the shift happens, right? And then those connections that cause all your fear and insecurities get smaller and smaller. And one thing I love to say all the time is that we are not here for long, so why not spend this time evolving, changing, having fun, having life filled with laughter and joy or whatever, instead of living a life led by fear. Because honestly, and I say this with all the love in the world, life is too short to hold yourself back. You're never meant to just shrink and let your insecurities take control. You're here to grow and evolve into the person that you're meant to be and to live life to the fullest. And if nobody told you this lately, just remember that you are already enough, even as you're working on becoming more. Anywho, that is all I have for you guys today. And if you guys love this episode, please feel free to leave a comment and review. I really love reading them and responding to them. And if you love this podcast, feel free to share with your friends, family, post on socials. And you can always tag me at AMsBOV. And yeah, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. And I will see you guys in the next episode.